This is our third and final video for the conventions lesson on recognizing fragments and then using that to help you understand how to deal with the semicolon and the colon better. So this is using Rule 18b, which would start on page 64 in the actual textbook physically. Basically, it's just going to remind you of how we use the colon. The colon is very easy to get mixed up with the semicolon because they both have that same word root, right? And so sometimes it's just literally hard for adults to remember the difference between them. So semicolons are stop, connect. I want you to think of colons as being stop, stop, right? You have two periods there, and those two periods basically make you pause and pay attention to what comes after. So I like to think of the semicolon as a very formal and lovely Vanna White. Stop, stop, pay attention. Okay? So when we look at this, what are the things that we want people to pay closer attention to? Well, one of the things is a list, right? Sometimes we want people's attention to be focused on the list. The routine includes the following: stop, stop, pay attention, 20 knee bends, 50 leg lifts, and 5 minutes of running in place. That's an acceptable use of a colon. Sometimes we want to have emphasis on that appositive, which, remember, this is the third time you've heard it in Word in a row. And appositive is a noun phrase that basically gives a definition for a noun that's placed right ahead of it. My roommate lives on two things. What are those two things? Here's your noun: stop, stop, snacks, and social media. So it puts emphasis on it by forcing our eyes to kind of pause. Not a pause necessarily in breath, right? You're not taking a breath there, but you are visually going, this is important. Snacks and social media. Here's the one that I really want you to pay attention to, because this is going to greatly improve your sentence structure for your quotation sandwiches, especially when you think in the context of those of you who are struggling with signal phrase. It is often much better to use a colon between the words that introduce the colon, the signal phrase, and the quote, if you are following this particular rule. And that is, if the signal phrase is a complete thought, and this one actually is a complete thought, it's framed as a command. Anytime that you start a sentence in English with the verb, you're actually commanding your audience to do it. Consider the words of Benjamin Franklin. You consider the words of Benjamin Franklin. That's a complete thought. We can put a colon here, and then we can place the words itself. There never was a good war or a bad peace. Okay? There are also other ways that you can introduce quotations, and it shows you various signal phrasing formats on 70 and 71. But it's also reminding you that you can choose to put a colon between independent clauses that are not quotes if the second clause summarizes or better explains the first clause. So here is a claim. This is a statement. It's a comparison. Faith is like love. In the back of your mind, you might think, well, how is it like love? They give you the answer here, right? It better explains this first comparison. Faith is like love. Stop, stop. It cannot be forced. Okay? So keep that in mind as you are thinking about using these colons to improve your signal phrase grades. All right, there are also some conventional uses of the colon that I think most of you know about. At the end of letter salutations, we use them in time signatures, we use them in ratios, we use them to introduce subtitles. We use them sometimes. This is an old version of MLA. We don't do that anymore. We use them sometimes when identifying the chapter and book of a sacred text. Okay? But MLA mainly recommends periods. They don't recommend colons, but a lot of people use colons, so it's okay as long as you recognize it. There are some potential misuses of the colon. Just like you can put the semicolon in the wrong place, what you're going to find here that mainly all the problems in the misuse of the colon are list problems. So you're never going to put a colon between a verb and its object or complement, because the object, which is a noun, or the complement, which is an adjective, is what finishes off the thought that's created by the verb. So if we read up to the point of the colon here, it would sound weird. Some important vitamins found in vegetables are and then we want a list. But what they're saying here is you cannot separate the verb and its direct objects, which is what's happening here. We cannot have that one. So the list can remain, but this is one of those times when the colon is not appropriate in the list. Very similar issue going on in your second example. You cannot put a colon or any other piece of punctuation between a preposition and its object. What is a preposition? Well, a lot of times we talk about prepositions as being what your teacher might call box words. And all that simply means is they give us some sort of direction in connection to a physical object. So a lot of times a teacher, I've done it myself, will take like a tissue box and then show you preposition words because they can all be used around the box. So your finger could be in front of the box, behind the box, below the box, beside the box, in the box, on top of the box, from the box, of the box. You get the idea. The thing to remember grammatically is that prepositions always have to be ended with a noun. So just like up here, you can't separate the verb from the noun that ends the sentence. You cannot separate the preposition from the noun that ends the phrase. So our heart's two pumps each consist of, well, you can't put the colon there because structurally, grammatically speaking, it doesn't work. And same problem here. You're never going to use it after the words such as, including, or for example. You might be wondering, well then, I thought I could use the colon. How can I rewrite these? Well, you can rewrite it. It just depends on the sentence. So, how would you put a colon into that last one about sports? The NCAA regulates these college sports, colon, basketball, softball, and football. So it's all in a matter of the way that you phrase it. If you ever get stuck and you want to know whether or not you're allowed to use a colon with a list, just pass the sentence by me. Really, the most important part of all of this that I want you to remember is right here. If you guys can remember to start using colons in quotation sandwich structures where your signal phrase is a complete thought and your quote is a complete thought, that's going to radically improve and get rid of some of the wordiness that you right now have in a lot of your awkward signal phrases.